both alive and live. I can do Pearl Jam if you'd like. I'm still alive. So if you didn't know, previously in my life, in December, I had an incident where I had a UTI, what I thought was maybe either a bug or something, make me violently ill. I ended up going in the hospital and they said, "Surprise, you have a kidney stone." And I'm like, "Oh, I hurt," but I always hurt because I have endometriosis, so that's nothing new. And the pain that I was having wasn't flank pain, so I didn't think, oh, kidney. It was very frontal, so I thought ovary, my one last ovary. But surprise. This kidney stone was like wedged in a certain place and I guess decided to make an abscess. So then I got really, really sick. So they said, "We're going to drain the abscess." This was December 20th or so, or the night of. And I was confident. I went into the ER confident and like, these doctors know what they're doing. I generally am not too afraid of going under. And like my gallbladder was a success, the ovary was a success. Didn't really, I wasn't too stressed. And they said that I'd be like in twilight or whatever anyway, so I wasn't even going down all the way, and they were gonna like stick a tube and drain the abscess. So they did. They stuck a tube, and what's weird is they gave me fentanyl of all things, and I still felt it, which is crazy. But what I think happened was they injected me, and then he just started, and so I was like, "Oh!" And then but I was strapped to the table, so, like, I couldn't, like, roll off or anything. So and then they were like, "Oh my gosh, like, everybody's so different. I thought looked like you were feeling good, so I thought it took." Anyway, so they gave me another shot. I don't know of how much or what, but, and then I was like, "Okay, great." That was terrible. So then they wheel me, and I'm just sorta like in another universe because drugs. And then they put me to the hospital room. And luckily, I'm in the cardiac unit for some reason because I don't know. That was where the room was. So I kind of was lucky because that rapid response team is like no joke. They're like on top of it. And so they wheeled me in the room. The room was really nice for a hospital room, by the way. It was like dark blue, and like I was like, dang, this is like super nice. Anyway, nurses were really interesting. One lady's name was Venus, and so like if anything I learned from exiled who passed away, she always said if you find yourself in an emergency situation, make sure you start talking to people. Make sure that they see the humanness in you and that they remember you. And so like, I was chit-chatting also out of a little bit of nervousness. And then all of a sudden I went into I'm so cold. And I went from I'm so cold to just literally jumping off the table. Like my legs are like off the table and I'm just shivering in the most violent way I've ever seen shivering. And I was like going into convulsions, which was crazy. That's like what it was like. And then I started hyperventilating, but it wasn't out of anxiety. You think, oh, you're hyperventilating out of anxiety, but it was like when you go into septic shock, which is what was happening. Went into septic shock. Your body is doing all this wild stuff on the micro level everywhere throughout your body, and they're trying to get rid of the infection that has spread everywhere in your body because when they drained the kidney has so many veins going into it, it just spreads everywhere. And so it was just a wild experience. And I'm aware enough and hyperventilating and watching myself jump off this table. And I'm aware enough, like, oh, this is happening, but like not knowing exactly why yet. And luckily the nurses were actually really smart. They were telling me what was happening. And what they were doing to help me. And they would try to ask me a question, and I would be like, one word answer, because like that's all I could spell out. But anyway, like within minutes of going into Rikers, like all of a sudden there was like this whole crew, like of 8 people trying to save me, and they're pushing the epinephrine and stuff like that because my heart rate's going tanking. And then all that night it was sort of like tank, 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 and then they push, 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 and tank, 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 and then we go up and down. And then eventually they just said, like, we can't get your heart rate to go up anymore because when we put the meds in you, nothing's happening because now my blood pressure is so low that nothing's moving. And so they can't even draw blood at this point. And so they ended up putting like a thing in my neck. It's like called a central line. And now it didn't scar too bad. It just feels like a bump, really. And it's a little more red in person than it is on the camera. Anyway, they put a central line, which is like 12 inches of wire, like tubing that goes into your neck, and then they can direct the meds directly into it. And that's really what saved my life is the central line. But it was really scary because, like your kidneys have shut down, your heart is now failing, and that's what septic shock does. It shuts down all of your organs, and they're doing their best to keep them going. So anyway, that night they finally got me stabilized and they said, you can go to bed now. You can sleep now because like I was fighting. So I was conscious the entire time, which is, I don't even know how with my heart rate dropping like that. And I remember saying a prayer, just like, God, please don't put me on a ventilator. I don't want to die on a ventilator. And like, that was my fear was like, because when your organs shut down like that, and the nurse was very honest with me, the reason why they had to do the central line is if they don't get my heart rate started and they don't kickstart my other organs started, what happens is I will eventually pass out and my lungs will fill with fluid. And that was the next thing that would have gone wrong. And so I missed that, thank goodness. And spent a day and a half or so in the ICU, which was enough to cause traumatic memories for that. But I am very thankful. People were very professional and stuff like that. So I did want to say thank you to people that have helped me out during this time, because as you can imagine, it's been kind of an ordeal being, and I'm very working class, and I'm not somebody that tends to have too much of a cushion living in Southern California. And so I do appreciate people's help. A lot of people have helped me out, and I really wanted to say a kind thanks for that, because it was incredibly scary. And then to be healing and go, now how do I solve these real life problems that are now incredibly scary? Like, I'm looking at it going, can I pay rent? Am I going to get evicted? Am I going to do that? Da, 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 da. Then like my work's like, you got to pay for all of your insurance. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so like, I was like in a panic. And so as sort of a Hail Mary is like, hey, if anybody feels like it, you can kick me a few bucks. So I really do appreciate folks helping out. That helps tremendously. And I did apply for short-term disability, but it's been delayed. And so like, it just was really scary. And so I really appreciate it. And special thanks to folks. Rose, thank you. Great to see you. Doggy, hi, good to see you. Gretchen, great to see you. Blue, great to see you. Glenda, great to see you. Doggy, again, good to see you. Layman's Seminary, good to see you. Layman's Seminary, I haven't talked to in a while, but one of the things I really liked about him is he would give you books to read constantly and go, hey, this looks like a good book. And whether you agreed with his theology or not, he always supplied a way to learn more. And I always appreciated that. So it was kind of cool. All right. Well, thank you. I feel better. I have some pictures where I look way worse. I have one picture where like my dark circle's like down to here. I swear to goodness, it looks like someone socked me in the eye. It was just really wild. But yeah, I definitely have improved. Right now, infection's been quelled quite a bit. Like I'm still kind of watching it and worried. Like, of course, I'm like paranoid now, like that the same thing's gonna happen again or something. But right now, that's been fine. My blood work's coming back really well. I'm going to have a follow-up ultrasound in March, I think, because everything's so spaced out. You know how it is. But what was I going to say? This is why I'm afraid of going back to work, because I'm a little bit forgetful. I was like, the brain fog is real. Oh, because I have like a autoimmune issue and fibro, what happens is when anything goes wrong, whether it's over exercising, illness, whatever it is, I am like so inflamed right now. So I'm a little bit stiff, like everything's really stiff. But other than that, I've improved quite a bit. Stiffness and fatigue is a big thing, but that's sort of connected more with I think the autoimmune stuff, and a little less with this terrible adventure I've been on. Um, but I just wanted to say that I did see people's kind words and support, and I did want to say I appreciate it. Um, One of the things I want to talk about is I ended up in a debate with somebody about the Democratic Party and how things have sort of flipped for Republicans. So the grand old party of Republicans that used to like, be, Lincoln's party, and the party for uh, emancipation and everything like that had largely flipped. Not that I'm saying they're endorsing slavery, except for Mitch McConnell. There's this leaked conversation with Mitch McConnell who might actually do that. But like largely, the progressive attitudes have flipped to largely the Democrats, even though Democrats are largely corporatists and they have their own problems too. But um, there's this weird alternate history thing that's happening where when you talk about history, when I talk about history with MAGA Republicans, they go, "Nuh-uh, that's woke, that's revisionist, da 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 da." And then when you try to show them, like, no, this was a whole strategy that Nixon employed where they were trying to flip the South over to Republicans, and how, like, while it was slow going, not everybody in Congress immediately flipped to Republican. Generally speaking, like the South was targeted with the Republican Party, and so they started taking up a lot of the same interests of that. So when they lost on segregation, they moved to abortion. Largely, you could pull like Protestants and their views of abortion, and it was like, nah, like I don't like it, but might be a necessary evil. They didn't consider it killing a baby and all that. And then you can really trace it to Jerry Falwell pushing for that, and then using that as a well, the Republican Party largely used that as a, well, you don't want to support killing babies, do you? And so life begins at conception, and you don't want to support killing babies became the strong arm to make a lot of evangelicals completely commit to the Republican Party. And it became like a one issue voter, all the conversations when I worked in church and I attended church, all the conversations were always like, when these sort of things came up, was like, oh, but I can't because that person's pro-choice. I could never vote for them because they're pro-choice, even though they might be great on everything else. And so no matter what, they would even vote against their own interests because of that issue. And so when you bring this up in conversations with MAGA Republicans, they go, "Nuh-uh," and they think that like these notions like are like have always been in stone, which is kind of interesting. Hey, KCG, good to see you. Can you put a way to contact you for your channel info? Yeah, I'll probably I'll probably start Blue Sky again. I closed it out of frustration and trying to curtail like a lot of my media engagement kind of stuff to like a smaller pool. But I might go back to Blue Sky again. That's where a lot of the more interesting stuff's happening. And so that could be a way to reach me. I generally stay away from emails after certain weirdos did certain things in the community. And I tend to be a little bit careful now with DMs. I am not as keen on it as I used to be. I still make friends with people, but I don't know. I find that I find that there's been some things that have happened that have made me a little more reserved than I used to be. But I'm still pretty friendly. Um, but yeah. Okay, you're the same name there. Peace, love, Charla. Okay, yeah. Um, my mom told me recently she grew up knowing life was always better under Democrats. FDR was a huge impact on the working class. Yeah, and FDR was a leftist. Now, FDR isn't an angel. I think there's failings on the Black community with the FDR that can be easily pointed out. And then the Japanese internment camps. But overall, for other policies, he was my favorite president for other policies. Like his Bill of Rights, the right to earn a living wage, the right to housing, things like that, are the problems that we're facing right now. Like he felt like it was a human right, a right of a citizen to have a house, to have a job, to have a living wage. And these are the things that we're battling with now because people don't feel like it's a right. They think that you just have to work harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. So, that's one of those things. Good to see you, Eve. Great to see you. Trump says Reagan loved tariffs. He doesn't even pretend to know history. Oh, man. Ronald Reagan, the one thing I can say that's good about Ronald Reagan, because there's not much, is maybe that he helped fund orphan drugs. So if you had MS or ALS or some odd disease that wasn't as common as other diseases, you could get funding and help. Well, not you personally, but the drug companies would get funded. And then the theory was because they were funded to make these drugs that the price would go down for people that absolutely needed those drugs. But then as far as the AIDS crisis goes, he actually biffed it and failed it. He made college not free. College could have been way more accessible, but thanks to Ronald Reagan, it's not. There's so many things that you could complain about, but those are the first couple off the top of my head. Yeah, my family was like a big Reagan fan, like a big one. And then Carter's on social things. A lot of times I like him. When it came to Iran, he absolutely biffed it, and he created Iran as it is today. I think supporting the wrong group in power in Iran was a big mistake, and I think you can trace that to Carter. So now that Iran is this really strict, really wild theocracy that I hope they eventually break from, I think some of that is Carter's fault. Now, granted, I think that a lot of presidents also are influenced by advisors and the people around them that seem to know, the policies better. I think, presidents are human, but yeah, he made some mistakes. Yeah, but FDR did too, and FDR is probably my favorite out of them. I can't get over that people are defending pedophiles in charge. Like, I'll never get over this. I will never get over this. I will never. It's just so horrific to me. If justice isn't for the wealthiest of us, then it isn't for any of us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think besides, the harm and the horribleness of these crimes against children, I think what also is really offensive is that justice doesn't count for the filthy rich. And there are the people that are accepting that and just rolling over, and there are people that aren't accepting that and not rolling over. And I wish that more and more multi-party, right and left, would not roll over on that. Because I do know that there are some conservatives that do not like that either. You don't know if you believe in justice anymore. I don't know. I feel like justice is a pay to play thing a lot of times. That's kind of what you see in the world. Case in point, Charlotte, you've dealt with defamation, things like that. There was that rescue diver who was rescuing kids that were trapped in a sea cave. And Elon makes a suggestion, I think via Twitter. But he makes a suggestion, or he emailed or something. He makes a suggestion of a solution, and then the cave diver says that won't work because of the silt buildup, and that will completely blind us, and trying to explain why that wouldn't actually work. And Elon's reaction to somebody declining his brilliant idea was to call him a pedophile. And the cave diver sued him, rightfully so, because Elon's reach is gigantic. And this was before he bought Twitter. It was already gigantic prior to buying Twitter. And then he's being called a pedophile on that, like really unfounded, out of revenge. And he lost the defamation case. He didn't win it. I mean, how do you go against such power like Elon Musk or anybody, Elon is not nearly as smart as people credit him to be, but what he is he had play money to begin with from his daddy, and he had some connections, and then I would say he's persistent. I mean, he's probably a hard worker in the sense that he works persistently. But what I think he has a knack for really is getting people that are smarter to him to do the brilliant work. He's not the brilliant person himself. He might have some vision. I would say he has some vision, but the brilliance comes from the people that actually work for him. So, yeah. Yeah, he's a man child. Yeah, he's something. And what's kind of crazy too is like this demand for morality from evangelical right drives me nuts too. I'm just going to pick on that for a minute. Like right now, there's a big campaign, I don't know if you know, to get rid of gay marriage again, because a child needs a dad and a mom in the home. Meanwhile, Elon has how many baby mamas and how many kids? Is he like on number 20 or something? Like, how many kids does this man have? And he's going to keep procreating with these women. These kids don't have a normal upbringing. They don't have a upbringing that would resemble anything like the nuclear family. Nobody's coming for him. Like, nobody's commenting on that as being an issue, which is kind of weird. Yeah, Elon, but it's hard to say anything in those files is funny, but what is noticeable with Elon is he's like, please, can I go to the party? And they're like, no, you're too weird for us. like he got declined. He's too weird and too like much of a, like, I think they felt like he was too much of a wild card. They wouldn't be able to reel in and actually blackmail. Yeah, Elon was like, please, can I come to the party? And so you have questions about his morality right there, but the fact that they didn't let him in, which is weird. How bad do you have to be if the bad people won't let you in? I don't know. But yeah, he is all over the files. I think the Princess of Norway's in there, which is really weird. And Andrew, obviously. There was somebody that Bill Gates kind of surprised me, but not completely. If he's guilty of anything, throw him in prison. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care if he's a lefty. I've always thought Bill Clinton was a creep. Always thought that. And so if anything comes up with that, throw him in prison. But the problem is that people are unwilling to do it. They're afraid. No one comments on Caroline. Kick Caroline. Snagging her man with a baby, premarital sex is a no-no. Oh, I didn't know that. Uh-oh. It's supposed to be first comes marriage, then a baby carriage, not the other way around. Come on. Evangelicalism 101. Purity culture. All right. Good to see you, Charla. Good to see you. But what I find in some of these debate groups is when you bring up something historical, like the historical flip of the Republican and Democratic Party, which was over time largely, but it did flip over time, and it kind of started with Kennedy. And I would say FDR was largely left, but when you're talking about like racism, people bring up the Dixiecrats, and the Dixiecrats were real, and they're still trying to say like it's the Dixiecrats. And so I was talking to somebody that believed that the same party of the Klansmen, which was, Democrats were in the party of the Klansmen back in the day, back in the day. And they were trying to say that the protest of the church was equal to Klansmen. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. So I will say this, the protest in church was stupid, and I can tell you why it was stupid. If you understand evangelicals at all, you would know that that will galvanize them, and they will consider themselves martyred for their faith. And it won't be about policy or flipping their policy or flipping their ideas. It's going to turn into my religion's under attack. And it is a mistake to protest the churches. One, I truly feel like it is a violation of the Constitution. We have a freedom of religion. I have a lot of problems with Islam, but if I march into a mosque and start protesting, why aren't you pushing back on Iran? Why aren't you pushing back on the death penalty in Saudi Arabia? Why aren't you, that's impeding, the freedom of worship, and the first time I noticed this happening was the Free Palestine folks doing it. And I was like, this is a big mistake. Don't do it. And then they did it again in this protest. And I'm telling you, it's a huge, huge mistake. If you think that's a good idea, you do not understand evangelicals, because they are looking for martyrdom, and you're giving it to them. And also is against the Constitution. I truly feel like your free speech doesn't override someone's ability to worship. Now, if you want to protest outside the church, have at it, but don't block people's ability to get there or the ability to worship. That's a problem. And the same people that did that would have a problem if somebody like me that takes issue of some points in Islam started protesting in a mosque. They would say, well, you bigot, and flip out about it. And my thing is just don't impede people's right to worship. Don't impede people's rights to worship. They also did it to a synagogue. They've done it to a church and a synagogue. Yeah, I find it offensive, actually. And I'm not even like knee deep into it. But I think that it's offensive, not just from religious clutching of pearls or anything like that, but that it's offensive because it's impeding people's ability to worship, and that's protected in the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment also is being violated by ICE. Super serious. People busting down doors without warrants. That's a huge deal. And watching people act like that's not a huge deal, especially right-wingers, is really confusing to me, because these are the people that are like, stand your ground. And they're like okay with that. And then they're wrong when they do it. Like the guy that they pulled out in the snow, and he was just in the blanket and his shorts. Well, not even shorts. They were boxers. So he's out in his underwear in the snow. And then they're wrong about it. I'm sorry, but if somebody busts down your door and they violate your Fourth Amendment, there is the Second Amendment. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying endorsing that, but I'm saying, like, if that happens, it's their own fault. And unfortunately, my worry is that will happen in some state like Arizona, where people are a little more yippee-ki-yay there. And my fear is it'll happen, and then the person or anybody in that house will be gone. And then they'll be like, oh, well, and then it turns out they'll probably be wrong again anyway, Yep, the door to door. It's just wild. Like, it's just offensive and horrific. And I don't know how you can be so inground to not have a problem with it. Even the NRA had a problem with the Alex Peretti shooting. Even the NRA was like, he had a right to carry. And just because you're carrying and it's holstered does not necessarily mean you're an imminent threat. That's not how it works. So that's kind of been interesting as well to see the NRA speak up, because they're like, oh, this is going down a road that we don't like, because carrying legally is not necessarily a threat. It's okay, actually. And then to watch the backbends, it's just really wild. Like, he can't bring a gun to a protest, but then Kyle Rittenhouse in a different state drives and crosses state lines to join a protest wielding his rifle. I feel like that would be pretty threatening, because a rifle isn't holstered. So it definitely would be more of a threat to me, because like in an instant, but yeah, I don't know. It's just been weird to see the backbends. Anyway, I'm still got some like fogginess to me. I'm hoping to clear that up. I'm drinking tons and tons of water and juice, and Gatorade and stuff like that. One of the things that's happening to me is I'm dealing with a lot of potassium drops, so I'm trying to keep that up. But yeah, I'm going back to work this week, later in the week, so I am nervous and excited at the same time. I'm excited to make money again, and hopefully be less scared. But I also am a little bit afraid, because I know my job is really, really busy. And so I'm a little bit foggy. So I kind of feel a little bit weird. Well, thank you. I'm glad that I sound good. I feel all right. Definitely better than I did like the last few weeks. So that's good. If you saw me at my worst, it was really wild. I did show some people pictures, but I don't want it circulating around the internet and Wolf getting it or whatever. But like, there was some, like, I look bad right now. Like, you can see I'm kind of baggy and stuff like that. But like, I had like one that was like, my right eye looked like it was a shiner. It was so, it was so dark. It was really wild. So it was like, who beat you? But anyway, yeah. So anyway, my thoughts are kind of all over the place today. But the two things were on my mind was like people that are like, oh, it's revisionist to say that the Democrats and Republicans switched. And it's like, no, that's kind of just how it happened. And you can learn that in a civics class, but I guess they decided civics classes are for the woke or something and for revisionists. But anyway. All right, guys, I'm headed out after dark. Just headed out right now, but good to see you. Hope everything's well with you. And everybody, tomorrow I'm going to be live with Savage Minnow. We're going to be talking about AA, and we have a little bit of a bone to pick with AA, the both of us, where largely there's some problems with AA. They use some cult tactics that we don't like, and religious tactics that we don't like. And then you can be court ordered to go to AA, and they have these tactics that are just like, they don't really work for people that are non-religious particularly. Yeah, it is sort of a touchy subject, because I know that it's helped some people, but I also know some people where it's absolutely not helped them. And so there's going to be a conversation about the good, the bad, the ugly of AA. I feel like it's a little bit of a touchy subject, because you don't ever want to deter anybody from getting any help. At the same time, if the help is harming people in a lot of ways, then that should be called out as well, because we could always improve, I think. So anyway, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I think we go live, let me think, Pacific Standard Time, which is West Coast time, on Savage Minnow's channel, probably around 3 in the afternoon is probably, or so, 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, somewhere around there. Anyway, all right. I will see you next time.